Welcome to an unbiased car animated summary of Crave. To begin, we start off with our heroine, Grace. She lives in San Diego. Her parents die. Oh no, how tragic. So she becomes orphaned because you have to be orphaned if you want to be the main heroine. And she gets on this plane to go to this boarding school where her uncle lives and breathes and sleeps or whatever. And she meets this dude who takes her on a plane. And we don't know anything about this guy other than that he has a plane and it's just this rickety plane that apparently in her monologue just like should not be in the sky. But eventually they arrive to the school after she talks a lot about her parents' death, which she should stop doing. And then this guy comes out and he's like, "Oh my goodness, me and your dad should get some beers." And so he gives her all her clothes as she's losing her mind about how cold this place is because she's really stupid. And so she does that, and then from there, he just kind of leaves, and then Macy pops in, which Macy is the heroine, Grace's cousin. And the cousin, they're driving to the school, and Macy's like, "Oh my god, I'm so happy you're here." And they have this whole moment where Grace is like, "Yeah, well, my parents are dead. We're dead, so screw you." But she doesn't say that. She's like, "Oh, I need to be nicer." So they arrive at this boarding school, and it's like this gothic boarding school, and immediately Macy leaves her, and this guy pops in, and it's just some guy, and who immediately tells her, "You need to leave, you suck, get out of here." And she just starts caressing this man's scar immediately and keeps yapping about how hot he is, and I think that she should stop and take a breather, be emo again? I don't know. So anyway, she's losing her mind, and then he just disappears, which he does that sometimes. His name's Jackson, by the way. So her uncle Finn and Macy pop in, and they're like, "Oh my god, long time no see." And then Uncle Finn's like, "Well, I'm busy in my office because boys will be boys. There's a bunch of boys being boys." And it's just this whole scene of him saying boys will be boys. And anyway, so he's yapping about, "Oh my god, it's so nice to see you." And she's internally like, "Oh my god, my parents are dead." And then Macy's like, "Yay, your favorite color's pink," because that's a whole thing. Anyway, so Uncle Finn's like, "I gotta go do other stuff, bye." And then Macy's like, "Oh my god, you're cool if we share a room, right?" And Grace is internally like, "No, I don't want to share a room." But then she's like, "Yeah, I guess we could share a room." And yeah, so then she's like, "Oh my god, Flint's coming? I gotta go." And then Flint shows up and is supposed to help her with her stuff and get her stuff to her room. And because she has altitude sickness, he's like, "Oh my god, get on my back." And Grace is like, "No, I don't, I'm good. Thank you though." But he keeps insisting, and eventually he's like, "We'll compromise. You get on my back and I take you up there. That's a really good compromise." And then Grace is like, "You know what? Fine." And then does it. She spends this whole time saying no, and then just like that, pwinkles herself onto his back, and then they ride up to her new room, which she's sharing with this Macy fellow. And from there, she gets kerplunkled into her room, and then Flint puts her down, finally, because of course he does, and she admires how handsome he is, and Macy has a crush on this guy, but she also is dating someone, which, okay, so then Macy pops in, and she's like, "Oh my god, make yourself at home, I'm gonna let you settle in, I remembered your favorite color's pink." They mention that a lot. And then we have a whole internal monologue about how her parents are dead, and apparently she can't fall asleep because her parents are dead, and so she does something really stupid. She goes into the boarding school alone at night, and she meets these two students. These two students see her, and they're like, "We could, like, throw you in the snow. You know what? We should throw you in the snow." And so they grab her, and she's like kicking and screaming to get out of this because she doesn't want to die of hypothermia in this small foreign country of Alaska. And so they pick her up, and then they're throwing her in the snow, and then all of a sudden she loses the fight because she's not very strong. She's petite and little guys, and then all of a sudden they get dispatched by the guy from before, the guy who she caressed in the star. Turns out his name is Jackson, and I guess he's the main love interest. Yay! So they talk, and he's like, "You should be careful. You need to get out of here." And she's like, "No, dude, you're hot, but I'm not going to listen to you," because of course that would be her internal monologue. And then he's like, "No, you got to get out of here." And she's like, "No, I'm not going to get out of here." And then we cut to, he disappears again, by the way. And then we cut to the party that she spent forever getting ready for, and he eats a strawberry. And when she sees him eat the strawberry, she runs away. She's so scared. Because he ate a strawberry. she just felt so intimidated that she ran away. And I think that's really something special. So she finds herself in the library after falling in love with this Judululun fellow, and she's in the library and she's like, oh my god, I love the librarian here because she's annoying. And then she meets this girly pop named Layla who's chanting enchanted spells, which is fun. And then they become friends out of nowhere. And then Layla, she's like, oh yeah, I don't know what you're talking about, you must be going insane. And then Layla gives her tea, gives her some tea, and she takes it and drinks it, and then she goes back to her room and she has altitude sickness. And of course, this is just altitude sickness. This has nothing to do with the fact that she just drank the tea from Layla. Naturally, why would her being having sick right after drinking the tea from this random stranger, after getting intimidated by her potential love interest, have anything to do together? And so she spends the day being altitude sickness, but then she goes outside to see Jalglin and Layla talking, and she's like, what are they talking about? So they eavesdrop, and you know what they're talking about? The dead brother, Hudson. This dude that's all they talk about in this book. Hudson. And they never stop, because why would they? So eventually Layla sees Grace eavesdropping on them, and she's like, oh, I'm gonna go. Because Layla and Gilligan hate each other. And so then they have their whole scene of like, oh my god, you should be inside. And they do this weird knock-knock joke thing that I don't get, and I don't want to get. And then they yap about, you should stay away from Flint and Layla because they're both evil. Jim and my brother was evil. He disappears again because that's like his whole thing. And so she walks back alone. And then we have a montage of them falling in love. But I don't feel like building that out because they should not be in love. It's really weird. They have nothing in common. Anyway, so then she goes to a snowball fight, and she gets, like, stuck in this tree. And while she's stuck in this tree, she's, like, losing her marbles. She gets stuck in this tree, and then she, like, falls out of the tree, and then gets saved. But then she breaks her ankle, and so there's this weird scene where he's touching her foot, and it goes on for a lot longer than it needs to because he's helping her put on their foot. This book has a lot of references there. This is the only thing I'm mentioning. Anyway, so she goes to the library, and apparently this love triangle thing pops up because Flint is like, hey, you ever made marshmallows properly? So they make marshmallows in the library, they leave. And then Jackson and Grace make out for, like, a hot minute, and then, like, a whole, like, earthquake thing happens, and because why wouldn't it? And he, like, becomes a vampire crossing it, and then she's, like, on her own, and then she learns that vampires exist, which, because of course they do. Why wouldn't they exist in this world? So vampires exist. And then he gives about lore about Hudson, and apparently Hudson's his evil brother who, like, tried to kill everyone, and now he was just fully evil. And and then poor Jackson, his soul is so sad because his brother was evil. Anyway, so then Layla sees Grace again. She's like, oh my god, give this tea to Jackson so we can make up. Because Grace was trying to get them to make up or something. Because of course she would. So then Layla's like, oh my god, give this tea to him for me. And then they yap a while. And she's, because apparently Jackson and, like, Grace are a thing now. And Layla's supposed to be like, oh my god, you're right. We should have been fine the whole time. Because this book doesn't make any sense. So Gilligan and Grace go for a little flight around the Aurora Borealis because this vampire could do that, apparently. Because why wouldn't vampires be able to float around? They're floating, not flying, by the way. In case you were confused, the book makes it extremely clear that they're floating, not flying. So then they end up back in Gilligan's room, and he's like, oh my god, here, have the tea that Layla gave us, which is weird because they're gonna, like, hook up, but she gave him the tea first from her. I don't know why, but anyway, he drinks the tea because it's from his girlfriend, I guess. I don't understand, but that's okay. And then they do that, and then Layla shows up. She just shows up and apparently knocked him unconscious, and then she's like, ha ha ha, I'm actually evil, and I'm going to sacrifice you to get Hudson back. Because that makes sense. Because she's like a crazy ex or something. I don't really know. Anyway, so next thing Grace knows, she's in this, like, tunnel dungeon that she saw earlier, which I didn't mention because I didn't feel like it. Whoopsie. So she's, like, tied up, and Layla's like, yeah, I'm gonna bring him back. And then all of a sudden, turns out Flint wants to kill Grace to make sure that Layla can't bring back Hudson. And so he swoops in and tries to kill her. Which, why not just kill Layla? But that's beside the point. And then, um, you know, whatever. Jackson like protects her and makes sure she like doesn't die. And there's this whole scene, and I don't know why they didn't just kill Layla, but that's fine. Apparently that's why everyone was trying to kill Grace earlier. Which, I mean, whatever you say, man. I don't know. They have this weird scene where they're like live like because he's a vampire, so he like saves her. Anyway, so then they're walking to class after this big thing happened, and then Hudson comes out of nowhere because apparently the resurrection worked, and he's trying to kill Grace, and Grace jumps in front of my boy Jackson and saves him because she realizes that maybe she was the hero all along. Maybe she was supposed to die. She's orphaned after all. And then, boom,